Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into something that is, quite frankly, terrifying. Today we're unpacking the chilling legend of Rampur Village. It's a dark story packed with an ancient curse, a mysterious well, and a defense mechanism that is literally so simple, it's wild that it even works. I'm talking about salt lines.
Imagine living in a place where sunset doesn't just mean it's time to wind down. No, it means you're officially on the clock. Because every single night, right at exactly 9 p.m., this entire village goes into total lockdown. I mean, when that eerie 9 p.m. bell rings out across the dark mountain streets, it sparks absolute panic. Everyone rushes inside, windows are bolted shut, and doors are slammed tight. Not a single soul stays outside, not even for a second.
And that's because the Rampur Village Survival Guide is a strict, absolutely non-negotiable 3-step protocol. First up, you get inside before that bell rings. Second, families pour a thick line of salt across every single doorway. And third, and this is absolutely crucial, you never, ever open the door. That tiny, fragile line of salt, it's literally the only barrier standing between these families and the absolute darkness waiting outside. So, you're probably wondering, what happens if you break rule number 3? Like, what actually happens if you open the door? Well, we get to see exactly how this nightmare plays out through the eyes of a teenager named Aryan. He's followed this bizarre ritual his entire life without really understanding why. But one night, he's sitting alone in his room, just staring at that salt line, when suddenly, he hears a knock. And then, he hears the voice of his best friend, Anil, who had mysteriously gone missing a month prior.
Through the heavy door, a voice pleads, "Brother, please open the door. I'm scared." Man, imagine hearing that. Aryan's heart just about stops. It sounds exactly like his friend out there begging for help. He asks Anil where he's been, and the voice just keeps pleading to be let inside. So Aryan slowly walks toward the door, totally compelled to help his buddy. But right then, he remembers his dad's strict #1 rule: never open the door after 9 p.m. No matter who is outside, even if it sounds completely human, even if it's someone you love.
But when Aryan hesitates, the illusion completely shatters. The voice outside morphs into something way darker, growling, "If you don't open the door, you'll regret it." And boom, that is the crucial point here. This isn't his friend. It's a terrifying entity waiting right outside that salt line, trying to trick him into breaking the seal. Aryan is absolutely terrified, shuts his curtains, and bolts straight to his father's room. Part 1. The Ancient Well and a 50-Year Curse. To understand why all this madness is happening, the very next morning, Aryan's father, Vikram, takes him deep into the forest to this ancient, abandoned well. Now, the source material describes the air around this place as heavy, freezing cold, and just dripping with an evil presence. So here's the anatomy of the curse. 50 years ago, a young boy named Anil, this is the original Anil, totally different from Aryan's friend, fell right into this very well. And because he came from a poor family, the villagers basically ignored his desperate screams for help. They just let him die. In her profound, crushing grief, the boy's mother cast a dying hex on the whole village. She cursed them so that every 50 years, another child would be taken to keep her son company down in the dark forever.
And this brings us to a super fascinating yet horrifying piece of the supernatural lore here. You see, the spirits come back every single night, prowling the streets, desperately searching for someone to invite them inside. But here is the catch. They can never cross the threshold unless someone willingly opens the door. That is exactly why those salt lines work. They act as a spiritual boundary that forces the entities to ask for permission. Honestly, it's pure psychological warfare.
Part 2. The Breach and a Fatal Mistake. So what happens when that psychological warfare actually works? Think about the contrast here. Unlike Aryan, who trusted the rules and kept his door shut, a villager named Ramesh was vulnerable. He was drunk, and more importantly, he completely forgot to draw his salt line. When the knock came at his door at 9 p.m., the voice didn't belong to a friend. No, it was the voice of his daughter, Riya, who had actually passed away 10 years earlier. Completely overcome with emotion and tears, Ramesh ignored all the protocols. He asked if it was really her, and when she begged to come in, he caved.
Aryan and Vikram actually realized what was going down the street and sprinted toward Ramesh's house to stop him. But they were way too late. Ramesh opened his door to the darkness, and the source describes exactly what went down next. Dozens of black, shadowy hands burst from the void outside his doorway, grabbed him and dragged him screaming into the pitch-black night. And then the door just slammed shut right behind him.
The very next morning revealed a scene that is, honestly, chilling in its emptiness. Ramesh's house was completely vacant.
A thick layer of dust covered absolutely everything, looking like no one had lived there for years. There were zero footprints, no signs of a physical struggle, just this heavy, suffocating silence. He was completely wiped from existence, exactly like every single victim who disappeared before him.
Part 3. Descent into the well and breaking the curse. Realizing this horror loop is never going to stop on its own, Vikram makes a huge, desperate choice. He decides the curse has to end that exact night. He gathers Aryan and a few villagers at the cursed well to confront the entity right at its source. Let's trace this intense timeline here. At exactly 8:50 p.m., with these creepy whispers echoing up from the dark, Vikram ties a rope around his waist and climbs down. As he descends, the air turns freezing and strange voices start taunting him. He hits the bottom, but there's no water, just the tiny skeleton of the very first Anil. Vikram drops to his knees and apologizes for the village's devastating failure all those years ago.
But you know, the entity is definitely not ready to forgive. A terrifying voice growls out from the moving shadows down there. "Your village ignored my screams, and now you beg for mercy?" Up on the surface, the tension is just through the roof. Aryan checks his watch. It's 8:58 p.m. He shouts down a panicked 2-minute warning, because if Vikram isn't out of that well by the 9 p.m. bell, he's as good as dead.
Down in the dark, the spirit taunts Vikram, telling him that no one who entered has ever escaped. And this brings us to this powerfully poignant moment. Vikram just closes his eyes and offers a trade. He says, "If punishment is needed, take me, but please free this village." It's the ultimate selfless sacrifice. Suddenly, complete silence fills the freezing well. And then, out of nowhere, the rope jerks violently.
Up top, the villagers are in absolute panic mode. The clock strikes 9 p.m., the dreaded bell rings out across the mountains, the time for lockdown has officially arrived. But then, against all supernatural odds, and literally seconds after that bell tolls, Vikram climbs out over the edge of the well, alive.
Part 4. The Aftermath and a Peaceful Goodbye.
Vikram's genuine offer of self-sacrifice seemingly accomplished what 50 whole years of hiding could not. It broke the cycle. The terror just stopped. No more mysterious knocking at the doors, no more dark whispers from the shadows, and absolutely no more disappearances. Rampur village was finally free from the 50-year hex. But we do get one final, beautifully eerie piece of closure. Sometime later, Aryan is looking out his window into the night. Far away, near the tree line, he spots a small boy. It's his best friend, the missing Anil. But this time, Anil just smiles peacefully, gives a little wave, and slowly disappears into the darkness forever. The anger was finally gone.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to take away from our explainer today. The legend of Rampur village taps into a primal fear we all kind of share, right? If someone knocks on your door late at night, do you ever really know who's outside? Because as we've learned today, sometimes some doors should just never be opened. Thanks for hanging out with me to unpack this fascinating story, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.